Christian Bellamy built his empire on arrogance and control, but one encounter with Princess Adana shatters everything he thought he knew. Can love truly transform the unyielding? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The morning sun shone brightly through the tall windows of the Bellamy Investment Group's conference room in downtown London. Christian Bellamy, 34, stood at the head of the table, his tailored suit perfect, his blue eyes cold as he addressed his team. "Ladies and gentlemen, I don't care about excuses. I care about results," Christian said, his voice sharp. "The Henderson account is worth millions. We can't afford to lose it because someone didn't do their homework." His assistant, Martha, nervously handed him a stack of papers. "The information for the investment forum is here, Mr. Bellamy. All the speakers are confirmed." Christian barely looked at her as he took the papers. That was his way, demanding perfection, showing little warmth. It had earned him a reputation as London's most brilliant and most difficult investment tycoon. "Fine, is my speech ready?" he asked, flipping through the documents. "Yes, sir. And the guest list is impressive. Royalty from 3 countries, tech billionaires and oil magnates." Christian nodded absently. These forums were all the same to him, opportunities to expand his already vast empire, nothing more. In his luxurious penthouse that evening, Christian poured himself a glass of scotch and looked out at the London skyline. At 34, he had everything money could buy. The heir to the Bellamy shipping fortune had tripled his inheritance through ruthless business tactics and an uncanny ability to predict market trends. His sister Eleanor walked in without knocking, as usual. At 30, she was his opposite, warm, compassionate, and constantly involved in charity work that Christian dismissed as bleeding heart projects. "Still working, Christian? Don't you ever take a night off?" she asked, settling onto his sofa. "The market doesn't take nights off," he replied, not turning from the window. Eleanor sighed. "Have you seen the list of speakers for your forum? There's a Nigerian princess who's doing amazing work with diaspora investments." Christian scoffed. "Another royal looking for photo opportunities. Actually, she has a doctorate from Oxford in international economics. Princess Adana Ekweme. You should read up on her." Christian waved dismissively. "I'm sure she's very accomplished." Eleanor stood up, frustration clear on her face. "You know, Christian, sometimes I wonder if you even hear yourself, like that awful interview last year." Christian tensed. He knew exactly which interview she meant. The one where his comments about black women had raised eyebrows and created whispers in London's elite circles. "I was simply stating my observations," he said stiffly. "You said black women weren't feminine, that they were masculine. Do you have any idea how offensive that was?" Christian turned to face her. "I don't see why everyone made such a fuss. It was just an opinion." "An opinion based on what? Your limited exposure to black women in your all-white, all-rich social circle?" Eleanor shook her head. "You never even apologized." "There was nothing to apologize for," Christian insisted, though a flicker of discomfort crossed his face. Eleanor walked to the door. "Well, this Princess Adana will be at your forum tomorrow. Maybe meeting an actual African royal will expand your narrow worldview." After she left, Christian picked up the forum materials and flipped to the speaker bios. Princess Adana Ekweme's photo showed a woman with deep brown skin, elegant features, and an expression of quiet confidence. He studied it longer than necessary before tossing the papers aside. "Just another royal with a fancy title," he muttered to himself. The next morning, the historic Pembroke estate just outside London buzzed with activity. The annual International Investment Forum brought together the world's wealthiest and most powerful people for 3 days of networking and deal-making. Christian arrived early, inspecting every detail with critical eyes. This was his event, and it would be perfect or heads would roll. "Mr. Bellamy, your opening remarks are scheduled for 10 a.m., Martha reminded him, hurrying to keep up with his long strides. "And the Nigerian princess? When does she speak?" he asked, surprising even himself with the question. "Princess Adana. She's the keynote after lunch at 2 p.m. Christian nodded. "Make sure everything is set up properly for her presentation." The morning sessions went smoothly. Christian delivered his welcome address with the confident authority that had become his trademark. He moved through the crowds afterward, shaking hands and making small talk, but his mind kept wandering to the afternoon keynote. At precisely 1:55 p.m., Christian slipped into the back of the main hall. He told himself he was just checking attendance for the keynote, but in truth, curiosity had gotten the better of him. The room fell silent as a woman walked onto the stage. Princess Adana Ekweme moved with a grace that commanded attention without demanding it. Her dark skin glowed under the lights, and her braids, intricately woven and reaching her waist, were adorned with subtle gold accents. She wore a modern business dress that incorporated traditional Ankara fabric, paired with heels in the same pattern. But it was her presence that struck Christian most. She carried herself with a quiet dignity that seemed almost regal without being aloof. "Good afternoon," she began, her voice melodic with a slight British accent layered over African tones. "Thank you for the kind introduction." Christian found himself moving closer, taking a seat in the middle of the hall. For the next 45 minutes, he sat transfixed as Princess Adana spoke about diaspora investments, the untapped potential of African markets, and the importance of understanding cultural contexts in international business. She was articulate, intelligent, and utterly feminine in a way that made Christian's past comments feel like the words of a fool. When she finished, the audience rose in a standing ovation. Christian stood too, unable to take his eyes off her. As people began to file out, he made his way toward the stage where Princess Adana was speaking with a small group of attendees. He waited his turn, unusually patient. When he finally stood before her, he extended his hand. "Princess Adana, Christian Bellamy, that was an exceptional presentation." She turned to him, her warm brown eyes meeting his blue ones. "Mr. Bellamy, thank you for hosting this forum. It's an excellent opportunity for meaningful connections." Her hand was soft in his, her handshake firm but gentle. Up close, she was even more striking, not just beautiful, but possessed of a serene confidence that Christian found fascinating. "I'd be interested in hearing more about your thoughts on the Nigerian tech sector," he said, reluctant to end their conversation. "Perhaps during the networking dinner this evening," she suggested with a polite smile that somehow kept him at a distance. "I look forward to it," Christian replied, unaccustomed to the feeling that he was the one seeking approval rather than granting it. As he walked away, his assistant approached with a list of potential investors wanting meetings. For once, Christian was distracted from business. "Who is she really?" he asked Martha. "Beyond the title." Martha looked surprised at his interest. "Princess Adana? Well, she's from a ruling Igbo family in Nigeria. She has a doctorate from Oxford, as you know. She runs a foundation that connects African businesses with international investors. She's quite respected in financial circles." Christian nodded slowly. "Make sure she's seated at my table tonight. Sir, the seating arrangements were finalized days ago." "Change them," he said simply, walking away. That evening, the grand ballroom of the Pembroke estate was transformed for a formal dinner. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over tables adorned with elegant floral arrangements. Christian, usually fashionably late to such events, arrived early and stood near the entrance, his eyes scanning each new arrival. When Princess Adana entered, wearing a floor-length gown that combined modern simplicity with traditional African elegance, he felt an unfamiliar flutter in his chest. She moved through the room, greeting people warmly. When she approached his group, Christian stepped forward. "Princess Adana, I believe you're seated at my table this evening." She smiled, a hint of surprise in her eyes. "Am I? How fortunate." During dinner, Christian found himself unusually quiet, listening intently as Adana spoke with others at the table. She was knowledgeable about everything from finance to art, politics to technology. But it was the way she listened that impressed him most, giving each person her full attention, making them feel valued whether they were a CEO or a junior staff member. "You're not what I expected," Christian said quietly when they had a moment alone. "And what did you expect, Mr. Bellamy?" she asked, her eyes curious. Before he could answer, they were interrupted by a photographer. "Mr. Bellamy, Princess Adana, could we get a photo for the financial press?" They posed politely, standing close, but not touching. Christian caught a hint of her perfume, something subtle with notes of jasmine. "You haven't answered my question," she reminded him after the photographer left. Christian hesitated. "I'm not sure what I expected, But you've certainly made an impression on everyone here. Including you, she asked with a slight tilt of her head. Especially me, he admitted. A woman approached their table, Susan Winters, a well-known financial journalist known for her sharp questions and sharper pen. Princess Adana, what a pleasure. Your keynote was brilliant, Susan said, then turned to Christian. Mr. Bellamy, always interesting to see who catches your attention at these events. There was something knowing in her tone that made Christian uncomfortable. Princess Adana's insights on emerging markets are valuable to anyone in international finance, he said stiffly. Of course, Susan replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, especially coming from someone so... What was that word you used in your Economist interview last year? Not masculine, certainly. Christian felt his face grow hot. Princess Adana's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes cooled. I'm afraid I don't understand the reference, Adana said smoothly. Susan looked surprised. Oh, you haven't seen it? Mr. Bellamy's rather controversial interview, where he shared his thoughts on black women lacking femininity. It caused quite a stir. Christian wanted to disappear. That was taken out of context. Was it? Susan asked innocently. I believe your exact words were, black women can be intelligent, yes, but they often carry themselves masculine. It's not femininity that comes to mind. Not softness. Princess Adana's face remained perfectly composed, but Christian could see the slight stiffening of her shoulders. How interesting, Adana said, her voice cool but polite. If you'll excuse me, I see someone I should greet. She stood gracefully and walked away, leaving Christian feeling as though the floor had dropped from beneath him. Well, that was awkward, Susan said, not sounding sorry at all before moving on to another table. Christian sat there stunned by the sudden turn of events. Across the room he watched as Princess Adana spoke with other guests, her poise unaffected, but she didn't look his way again. Later, as the evening was winding down, Christian spotted her preparing to leave. He made his way to her, determined to say something, anything to undo the damage. Princess Adana, he said as he approached, may I speak with you for a moment? She turned to him, her expression polite but distant. Yes, Mr. Bellamy? About what Susan mentioned earlier. There's no need to explain, she interrupted gently. Your views are your own. But they're not. I mean, they were, but... He struggled to find the right words. A new experience for a man known for his sharp tongue. Princess Adana looked at him directly, her gaze unwavering. Mr. Bellamy, when a person tells you who they are, believe them the first time. She said it without anger, which somehow made it worse. And what if a person changes? He asked quietly. A small, sad smile touched her lips. That would be remarkable, wouldn't it? With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Christian standing alone in the crowded room, feeling for the first time in his adult life that he had been completely, utterly wrong about something fundamental. He watched her leave, the graceful sway of her dress, the proud set of her shoulders, the regal tilt of her head. Masculine, he whispered to himself. I was tragically mistaken. And in that moment, something shifted in Christian Bellamy's carefully ordered world. He wanted, needed, to talk to her again, to understand how one woman could so completely shatter his preconceptions with nothing more than her presence. The forum would last 2 more days. Somehow, he would find a way to show her that he wasn't the man those thoughtless words suggested. But as he watched the door close behind her, Christian wondered if he'd already lost his chance with the most extraordinary woman he'd ever met. Christian barely slept that night. The look in Princess Adana's eyes when she heard his past comments haunted him. For the first time in years, he felt ashamed. Morning found him in his hotel suite, pacing as he spoke on the phone with his sister. I made a complete fool of myself, Eleanor, he admitted, running a hand through his hair. Or maybe you finally realized you've been a fool all along, Eleanor replied. Those comments were awful, Christian. Did you really expect her not to be offended? I didn't expect her to find out at all, he said, then sighed. That's not what I meant. I've never met anyone like her. So what are you going to do about it? Christian stopped pacing. I need to apologize, properly. That's a start, Eleanor said. But don't expect a princess to fall at your feet just because you say sorry for being insulting." After hanging up, Christian called down to the hotel florist and ordered the largest arrangement they could create. Then he thought better of it. "Cancel that," he told the concierge. "Just send a simple note to Princess Adana's suite. Tell her I request 5 minutes of her time at her convenience." The second day of the forum was packed with presentations. Christian went through his obligations mechanically, his eyes constantly searching the crowds for Princess Adana. He spotted her during the mid-morning break, surrounded by admirers. She wore a cream-colored business suit with subtle Ankara print accents, her braids styled in an elegant updo. She looked every inch the royal she was. Christian approached cautiously, waiting until the group around her thinned. "Princess Adana," he said, his voice softer than usual. "Good morning." She turned to him, her expression neutral. "Mr. Bellamy, did you receive my note?" "I did." "And?" She glanced at her watch. "I have 3 minutes before my next meeting." It wasn't much, but he'd take it. They moved to a quiet corner of the reception area. "I want to apologize for what you heard last night," Christian began. "For what I heard?" Adana raised an eyebrow. "Not for what you said." Christian swallowed hard. "For that too, especially for that. My comments were ignorant and offensive." "Yes, they were," she agreed, her calm unwavering. "I was wrong," he continued. "Meeting you has shown me how completely, utterly wrong I was." Adana studied him for a moment. "Mr. Bellamy, I appreciate your apology, but I'm curious. Would you be apologizing if we hadn't met? If I weren't standing in front of you now?" The question caught him off guard. I don't know." "At least you're honest," she said with a small nod. "But that's the problem, isn't it? Your view of black women shouldn't have needed my presence to be corrected." Christian felt the truth of her words like a physical blow. "You're right." She checked her watch again. "I need to go." "Will you at least allow me to continue this conversation later?" he asked, unable to hide the hope in his voice. Adana hesitated. "The panel discussion on emerging markets. I'll be there at 4. With that, she walked away, leaving Christian feeling both chastised and strangely hopeful. Later that afternoon, Christian sat in the front row of the emerging markets panel discussion. Princess Adana was brilliant as she discussed investment opportunities in African nations, challenging Western perceptions with facts and figures. Afterward, he waited as she spoke with other attendees. When she finally approached him, he felt his heart beat faster. "You were impressive up there," he said. "Thank you." She gestured toward the exit. "I have a dinner meeting in an hour, but we could talk in the garden briefly." They walked outside to the estate's manicured gardens. The evening air was cool, and Christian noticed Adana shiver slightly. Without thinking, he removed his suit jacket and offered it to her. She looked surprised but accepted it with a gracious nod. "You wanted to continue our conversation?" she prompted. "Yes." Christian took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about what you said, about how my views shouldn't have needed your presence to be corrected. And you're right. I've spent my life in privileged circles, making judgments about people I never bothered to know. It wasn't just ignorant. It was arrogant." Adana's expression softened slightly. "Recognition of a problem is the first step towards solving it." "I want to do better," he said simply. They reached a stone bench near a fountain, and Adana sat down. After a moment's hesitation, Christian joined her. "May I ask you something, Mr. Bellamy?" "Christian, please. And yes, anything." "Why do you care what I think? There are plenty of people who share your original views. You could simply avoid those who don't." It was a fair question. Christian looked out at the garden, gathering his thoughts. "Because meeting you changed something in me," he admitted. "Not just my views on black women, but something deeper. You carry yourself with such grace and dignity. There's a strength in your gentleness that I've never understood before." Adana studied him, her dark eyes searching his face for sincerity. "You labeled women like me masculine," she said quietly. "What would you call me now, Mr. Bellamy?" Christian met her gaze. "Mistaken. I was tragically mistaken." Something shifted in her expression. Not quite forgiveness, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. "I should go," she said, standing and removing his jacket. "Thank you for the loan." As she handed it back, their fingers brushed, and Christian felt an electric jolt at the contact. "Will I see you at the closing gala tomorrow night?" he asked. "Yes, my mother will be attending as well." "Your mother?" Adana smiled for the first time. "Queen Ifeoma. She's in London for diplomatic meetings and decided to join the forum's final night." Christian tried not to look intimidated. "I look forward to meeting her." Adana's smile turned knowing. "I'm sure you do. Good evening, Christian." As he watched her walk away, Christian realized it was the first time she'd used his first name. The next morning, Christian called an unexpected meeting with his foundation's board of directors. "I want to launch a new initiative," he announced to the surprised group, "focused on funding black women entrepreneurs." Martha looked up from her tablet. "That's a new direction for us, sir." "Yes, it is," Christian agreed, "and long overdue. I want substantial funding, at least £5 million to start, and I want it done quietly. No press releases, no photo opportunities." "May I ask what prompted this?" asked Richard Collins, the foundation's elderly director. Christian thought of Adana but simply said, "It's the right thing to do." After the meeting, Eleanor appeared in his office doorway, a suspicious look on her face. "Martha told me about your new initiative," she said, crossing her arms. "What's going on, Christian?" "Can't I decide to do something worthwhile without being interrogated?" he asked, not meeting her eyes. Eleanor sat down across from him. "You can. It's just not like you to do it without making sure everyone knows how generous you're being." Christian sighed. "Maybe I'm changing." "Because of Princess Adana?" He looked up sharply. "What makes you say that?" Eleanor laughed. "Oh, please. I saw the way you looked at her during her keynote, like a man seeing the sun for the first time." Christian didn't deny it. "She's remarkable. And she's made you realize how wrong you were about black women." "Yes." Eleanor leaned forward. "Christian, if you're doing this just to impress her—" "I'm not," he interrupted. "Well, not entirely. Meeting her made me see things differently, yes. But this isn't about winning her approval. It's about fixing a wrong I've perpetuated." His sister studied him for a long moment, then smiled slowly. "Well, well, my big brother might actually be growing up." Christian rolled his eyes, but there was no real annoyance behind it. "Don't get too excited. I'm still a ruthless businessman." "With a heart, apparently," Eleanor said, standing. "Just be careful, Christian. Princess Adana isn't some conquest. She's royalty in more ways than one." "I know," he said quietly. "Believe me, I know." That evening, the final gala of the International Investment Forum transformed the Pembroke estate into a scene of almost magical elegance. Thousands of twinkling lights illuminated the grand ballroom, and the world's elite arrived in their finest attire. Christian stood near the entrance, impeccable in his tuxedo, greeting guests while surreptitiously watching for Adana's arrival. When she finally appeared, he nearly forgot to breathe. Princess Adana wore a gown that blended modern Western design with traditional African elements. The bodice was fitted, with an off-shoulder neckline that showcased her elegant collarbone, while the skirt flowed to the floor in layers of silk and Ankara fabric in rich blues and golds. Her braids were adorned with small gold beads that caught the light when she moved. But it was the woman beside her who truly commanded attention. Queen Ifeoma Ekweme moved with the assurance of someone who had wielded power for decades. Tall and regal in traditional Nigerian royal attire, her presence silenced the room momentarily. Christian approached them, suddenly feeling nervous. "Princess Adana," he said with a slight bow. "You look stunning this evening." "Thank you, Christian," she replied with a small smile. "May I present my mother, Queen Ifeoma Ekweme?" Christian bowed more deeply. "Your Majesty, it's an honor to welcome you to our forum." Queen Ifeoma regarded him with piercing eyes that seemed to see right through him. "Mr. Bellamy, I've heard much about you." Something in her tone made Christian wonder exactly what she had heard. He suspected none of it was flattering. "All good things, I hope," he said, attempting a charming smile. "Some recent improvements have been noted," the Queen replied coolly, glancing at her daughter. "We shall see if they last." Before Christian could respond, other guests approached to greet the royal visitors, and he was forced to move on with his hosting duties. Throughout dinner, he kept glancing toward Adana's table, where she sat with her mother and several diplomats. Once he caught her looking his way, and she gave him a small smile that made his heart race. After the meal, as the orchestra began playing and couples moved to the dance floor, Christian made his way to Adana's table. "Princess," he said with a respectful nod to both her and her mother, "would you do me the honor of a dance?" Adana glanced at her mother, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. "One dance, Mr. Bellamy," the Queen said. "My daughter has many admirers waiting." Christian led Adana to the dance floor, hyper-aware of her hand resting lightly on his arm. As the music played, he placed one hand properly at her waist and took her other hand in his. "Your mother doesn't approve of me," he said as they began to move with the music. Adana's lips curved in a slight smile. "My mother is protective and well-informed. She knows about my past comments." "Of course." Christian guided her through a turn. "And you? Have you decided whether to accept my apology?" Adana looked up at him, her dark eyes serious. "I believe you're sincere, Christian, but apologies are easy. Change is hard." "I've started a new initiative through my foundation," he said. "Funding for black women entrepreneurs. No publicity, no recognition." Surprise flickered across her face. "That's commendable." "It's not for show," he assured her, "and it's not just to impress you, though I admit I'd be pleased if it did." The music carried them across the floor, and Christian was acutely aware of her closeness, the subtle scent of her perfume, the warmth of her hand in his. "Why are you doing this, Christian?" Adana asked suddenly. "The truth." He looked into her eyes and found he couldn't be anything but honest. "Because you showed me a better way to be. Because I want to be worthy of—" He stopped himself. "Worthy of what?" she prompted softly. "Your regard," he finished, though they both knew he'd been about to say something more. The music ended, and they stood for a moment still close. Then Queen Ifeoma appeared beside them. "Adana, the Nigerian ambassador wishes to speak with you," she said, her eyes never leaving Christian's face. "Of course, Mother," Adana replied. She turned to Christian. "Thank you for the dance." As she walked away, Queen Ifeoma remained, fixing Christian with a stern gaze. "Mr. Bellamy, I understand you have developed an interest in my daughter." Christian straightened his shoulders. "I admire her greatly, Your Majesty." The Queen studied him. "My daughter tells me you are attempting to change your perspectives." "Yes, Your Majesty." "Let me be clear, Mr. Bellamy," she said, her voice low but firm. "Adana is not here to teach you how to be a better person. She is not your guide to enlightenment or your trophy to show how progressive you've become." Christian felt his face grow hot. "I don't see her that way." "Don't you?" Queen Ifeoma raised an elegant eyebrow. "Be careful, Mr. Bellamy. My daughter carries a legacy that dates back centuries. She is not a lesson, she is royalty." With that, she turned and glided away, leaving Christian feeling thoroughly chastised. Later, as the evening was winding down, Christian found himself on a terrace overlooking the estate gardens. He loosened his bow tie, breathing in the cool night air. "Hiding from your guests?" came a familiar voice. He turned to see Adana step onto the terrace, a shawl draped over her shoulders against the evening chill. "Just taking a moment," he replied. "Your mother gave me quite a talking to earlier." Adana smiled. "She worries. She's seen too many men fascinated by the idea of royalty rather than the reality of who we are." "I can understand that." Christian moved closer to her. "But my interest in you has nothing to do with your title." "Doesn't it?" she challenged gently. "Would you have noticed me if I were just another black woman at your forum? If I weren't Princess Adana, but simply Adana?" The question struck him silent. Would he have? A week ago, he might not have even looked her way. The realization was uncomfortable. "I'm trying to be honest here, so I don't know," he admitted. "But I'd like to think I would have. There's something about you that goes beyond titles or appearances." Adana nodded slowly, appreciating his honesty. "My mother warned me about you tonight." "I can imagine," Christian said ruefully. She said, "Do not fall for the white man who kneels without understanding the crown you wear." Christian winced. She has a way with words. She has wisdom, Adana corrected. She's seen many like you, Christian. Men who are fascinated by the exotic, by the challenge. Men who want to be seen as evolved because they desire a black woman they once dismissed. Her bluntness left him speechless for a moment. "Is that what you think of me?" he finally asked. Adana leaned against the stone balustrade, looking out at the gardens. "I think you're a man who's beginning to question beliefs you've held your entire life. I think you're sincere in wanting to change, but I also think you're used to getting what you want." "And what do you think I want?" She turned to face him, her expression serious. "Me? To prove to yourself that you've changed, to erase your guilt, to conquer." Christian shook his head. "That's not it. Or at least, not all of it." He stepped closer. "Yes, I want you. But not as some trophy or proof of my growth. I want you because in the few days I've known you, you've shown me a kind of strength and grace I never knew existed." "Pretty words," she said, but her voice had softened. "Not just words," he insisted. "I meant what I said about the Foundation Initiative. And there's more I want to do, not for recognition, not even for your approval, but because it's right." They stood in silence for a moment, the sounds of the gala fading into the background. "The forum ends tomorrow," Adana said finally. "I return to Nigeria the day after." Christian felt a pang of disappointment. "So soon?" "I have responsibilities, my foundation, my family's duties." "When will you be back in London?" "In 3 weeks, for a conference on diaspora investments." Christian took a chance and reached for her hand. To his surprise, she didn't pull away. "Have dinner with me then," he said. "Not as princess and CEO, just as Adana and Christian." She looked down at their joined hands, then back up to his face. "Why should I?" "Because I think there's something here worth exploring," he said simply. "Because I want to know who you are, beyond this forum, beyond titles and roles." Adana was quiet for so long that Christian thought she would refuse. Then she squeezed his hand gently. "One dinner," she said. "When I return." Christian felt a surge of happiness that surprised him with its intensity. "I'll count the days." She slipped her hand from his. "I should go back inside. My mother will be looking for me." "Of course." As she turned to leave, Christian called after her softly, "Adana." She paused, looking back at him. "Thank you, not just for dinner, but for seeing something in me worth changing." A smile touched her lips. "Perhaps I simply see the man you could become, Christian. The rest is up to you." With that, she disappeared back into the gala, leaving Christian on the terrace with a new sense of purpose. For the first time in his life, he wanted to be worthy of someone else's good opinion, not because of what it would get him, but because of who it would make him. He looked up at the stars, making a silent promise to himself and to her. He would become the man Adana saw in him, whatever it took. 3 weeks felt like an eternity to Christian. The day after Adana left for Nigeria, he threw himself into action with an intensity that surprised even his closest associates. "I want to meet with the board of Bellamy Investments," he told Martha on Monday morning. "Today, if possible." By afternoon, he stood before the confused board members, his expression determined. "Gentlemen, ladies," he began, "I'm announcing a new direction for our company. Effective immediately, we will dedicate 20% of our investment portfolio to businesses owned by women and minorities, with special focus on African enterprises." The room erupted in murmurs. Richard Townsend, the oldest board member, raised his hand. "Christian, that's a substantial shift. What prompted this?" Christian straightened his tie. "It's good business. These markets are undervalued and overlooked. We have an opportunity to lead the way." After the meeting, Martha approached him cautiously. "Sir, there's a journalist on the phone. She's heard about the new initiative and wants a statement." "No press," Christian said firmly. "This isn't about publicity." That evening, Eleanor arrived at his penthouse unannounced, waving a business newspaper. "What's going on with you?" she demanded, tossing the paper on his coffee table. The headline read, Bellamy shifts focus to minority investments. Christian shrugged. News travels fast. This is about her, isn't it? Princess Adana? It's about doing the right thing, he replied, but couldn't hold back a small smile. But yes, she inspired it. Eleanor sat beside him on the sofa. You really like her? Is that so hard to believe? The Christian I knew 2 weeks ago? Yes. She studied her brother's face. You've changed. Christian looked down at his hands. I'm trying to. Over the next weeks, Christian immersed himself in learning. He hired experts on African markets, read books about Nigerian culture, and met with black women entrepreneurs to hear their challenges firsthand. He also wrote an editorial for the Financial Times, publicly acknowledging his past comments and renouncing them. To the women I dismissed, he wrote, I was not only wrong, I was blind. The piece caused quite a stir. Some praised his honesty, while others questioned his motives. Christian ignored it all, focused only on the calendar date circled in red, the day of Adana's return to London. The night before her arrival, he called her. Christian, she answered, her voice bringing a smile to his face, despite the thousands of miles between them. Adana, how are you? Busy. The Foundation's new project is taking more time than expected. Your work is important, he said. More important than dinner with me if you need to reschedule. There was a pause, then a soft laugh. That's surprisingly understanding of you. But no, I'll be there tomorrow night as planned. I've reserved a table at the garden room. Is that suitable? Perfect, she replied. Though I'm curious, have you been reading reviews of Nigerian-friendly restaurants? Christian felt his cheeks warm. Maybe. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to, he said simply. I'll see you tomorrow, Adana. After they hung up, Christian stood at his window, looking out at the London lights. For the first time in his life, he was nervous about a dinner date. The garden room was intimate and elegant, with lush plants creating private nooks throughout the space. Christian arrived early, checking every detail personally. When Adana walked in, the room seemed to brighten. She wore a simple but elegant dress in deep purple, her braids arranged in an updo with a few strands framing her face. Christian rose to greet her, fighting the urge to kiss her cheek. You look beautiful, he said instead. Thank you. She smiled, noticing the flowers on the table. Lilies, how did you know they're my favorite? Christian pulled out her chair. I pay attention. As they settled in, Adana looked around appreciatively. This place is lovely. I've never been here before. I'm glad you approve. Christian felt uncharacteristically anxious. How was your flight? Fine. She studied him over her menu. You seem different. Different good or different bad? Just different. More relaxed, perhaps. Their conversation flowed easily as they ordered and began their meal. Christian told her about his new business initiatives, and Adana shared stories about her foundation's work in Nigeria. I read your editorial, she said as they finished their main course. It was brave. Christian shook his head. Not brave. Necessary. Many would have simply moved on, hoping people would forget. I don't want to forget, he said seriously. I want to remember how wrong I was, so I don't make the same mistakes again. Adana tilted her head, studying him. My mother saw it too. She was surprised. Pleasantly, I hope. Let's say she's reserving judgment. Adana smiled. But it was a point in your favor. As dessert arrived, Christian took a deep breath. Adana, these past weeks have been transformative for me. Meeting you changed everything. Christian, please let me finish. I'm not trying to flatter you or win you over with pretty words. I'm trying to be honest. You showed me a kind of grace I didn't deserve, and it made me want to be better, not just for you, but for myself too. Adana's eyes softened. I believe you. Those 3 words filled Christian with more joy than any business deal ever had. Would you consider seeing me again? He asked. Regularly, I mean. You're asking to court me. Adana's lips curved in amusement. Court, date, whatever you want to call it. Yes. She was quiet for a moment. My life is complicated, Christian. I have responsibilities in Nigeria, traditions to uphold. I understand that. Do you? She leaned forward. I'm not just Adana when we're alone. I'm always Princess Adana Ekweme. That title comes with expectations, obligations. I know, he said softly. And I wouldn't want to change who you are. That's who I'm falling for. All of you. The words slipped out before he could stop them. Adana's eyes widened slightly. Falling for me? We barely know each other. Christian reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of hers. Then give me the chance to know you better, and to let you know me, the real me, not just the arrogant businessman you first met. After what seemed like an eternity, Adana placed her hand over his. All right, Christian, we can try. His heart soared. You won't regret it. She withdrew her hand, her expression turning serious. But there's something you should know. My mother is staying in London for the next month. She'll want to assess you. Christian swallowed hard. I'll face any challenge for you. Adana laughed, the sound like music to his ears. Don't make promises you can't keep. My mother can be quite formidable. The next morning, Christian whistled as he entered his office, surprising Martha with his cheerful mood. Good news, sir? She asked. Very good news, he confirmed, then noticed her worried expression. What is it? There's someone waiting in your office. She insisted on seeing you immediately. Christian frowned and opened his office door to find Queen Ifeoma sitting regally in one of his visitor chairs. Your Majesty, he said, quickly recovering from his shock, this is an unexpected honor. Mr. Bellamy, the Queen's voice was cool, I thought it was time we had a private conversation. Christian nodded to Martha, who closed the door behind her as she left. Please make yourself comfortable. Can I offer you anything? I am not here for refreshments, Queen Ifeoma stated. I am here about my daughter. Christian sat down across from her. I assumed as much. Adana tells me you had dinner last night, that you wish to court her. The Queen's expression revealed nothing. Yes, Your Majesty, with your blessing, I hope. Queen Ifeoma raised an eyebrow. My blessing? You think it is so easily given? No, Christian said honestly. I expect I'll have to earn it. At least you understand that much. The Queen studied him. I've read your editorial, very eloquent. Thank you. Words are easy, Mr. Bellamy. Actions matter more. Christian leaned forward. I agree completely. That's why I've restructured my investment strategy, launched new initiatives through my foundation and... The Queen held up a hand, stopping him. Yes, you've been very busy proving yourself, but tell me, would you have done any of this if you hadn't met my daughter? It was the same question Adana had asked him. Christian considered his answer carefully. Probably not, he admitted. I was comfortable in my ignorance before I met her, but now that my eyes are open I can't close them again, even if Adana were to walk away tomorrow. Queen Ifeoma nodded slowly. A more honest answer than I expected. I'm trying to be worthy of your daughter, Your Majesty. That starts with honesty. Adana is not just any woman, Mr. Bellamy. She carries the legacy of generations. Our family has ruled for centuries. We have traditions, expectations. I understand. Do you? The Queen's eyes narrowed. If this relationship were to progress, would you be willing to learn our ways, to respect our customs? To understand that Adana's royal duties will always be part of her life? Yes, Christian said without hesitation. I would learn everything I could to honor her heritage. Queen Ifeoma stood, signaling the end of their conversation. We shall see, Mr. Bellamy. My daughter sees something in you that interests her. For her sake, I hope she's right. Christian rose as well. I won't disappoint her. Or you. Bold promises. The Queen moved toward the door, then turned back. One more thing, Mr. Bellamy. In our culture, a man who wishes to court a princess must first prove himself to her family. I'm hosting a small gathering at our London residence this weekend. Traditional food, traditional customs. You will attend. It wasn't a question. I would be honored, Christian replied. As she left, Christian sank back into his chair, loosening his tie. Facing down hostile corporate raiders suddenly seemed easy compared to winning over Queen Ifeoma. That Saturday, Christian stood outside the Ekweme family's London residence. an elegant townhouse in Belgravia. He carried a small gift box and wore a suit that Eleanor had helped him select. "Just be yourself," his sister had advised. "Well, your new self." The door was opened by a butler who led Christian to a richly appointed sitting room where Queen Ifeoma and several others waited. Adana wasn't present. "Mr. Bellamy," the Queen acknowledged him. "Welcome." "Thank you for inviting me, Your Majesty." Christian presented the gift box, a small token of appreciation. Queen Ifeoma opened it to reveal an antique silver bracelet. "This is quite old. Mid-19th century," Christian confirmed. "It reminded me of the traditional silverwork I saw in the Nigerian artifacts at the British Museum." The Queen's expression softened slightly. "You've been researching our culture." "As much as I can," he admitted. She introduced him to the others, a Nigerian diplomat, 2 family friends, and an elderly woman introduced as Adana's godmother. They were all watching him with curious, assessing eyes. "Where is Adana?" Christian asked after the introductions. "She will join us later," the Queen replied. "First you will have some time with us to learn." What followed was essentially an interrogation, disguised as polite conversation. They asked about his family, his business, his political views, his understanding of Nigerian customs. Christian answered honestly, admitting when he didn't know something rather than pretending. The elderly godmother, Mama Chika, seemed particularly interested in his responses. "You are not what I expected," she told him in a thick accent. "When Ifeoma told me about the rude Englishman who had insulted our women, I thought you would be different." "I'm trying to be different," Christian replied. "Better." Just then the door opened and Adana entered. She wore traditional Nigerian attire, a colorful, intricately embroidered dress with a matching head wrap. Christian thought she had never looked more beautiful. "I'm sorry I'm late," she said, greeting everyone before her eyes found Christian's. "I see you've all been getting acquainted." "Your young man has been very forthcoming," Mama Chika said with a smile, "and he brought your mother a lovely gift." Christian stood as Adana approached him. "You look stunning," he said quietly. "Thank you," she replied, her eyes warm. "Are they being too hard on you?" "Nothing I can't handle." Dinner was served in a formal dining room decorated with Nigerian art. The meal consisted of traditional dishes that Christian had never tried before. He did his best to eat everything with appreciation, even the spiciest dishes that made his eyes water. Throughout the evening, he noticed Adana watching him, his interactions with her family, his attempts to understand their customs, his willingness to try new things. After dinner, they moved to a courtyard garden where musicians played traditional instruments. Queen Ifeoma took a seat on a cushioned bench, gesturing for Christian to join her. "You have surprised me, Mr. Bellamy," she said. "In a good way, I hope. You are making an effort. That is noteworthy." Christian glanced across the garden where Adana was speaking with Mama Chika. "She's worth every effort." "Yes, she is," the Queen agreed. "Which is why I must ask, what are your intentions toward my daughter?" The directness of the question caught Christian off guard. "We're just getting to know each other, Your Majesty." "Do not play games with me," Queen Ifeoma said firmly. "A man like you does not pursue a woman like Adana without purpose." Christian took a deep breath. "You're right. I care for Adana deeply, more than I thought possible after so short a time. Where that leads, I hope it leads to a future together, but that's for her to decide too." The Queen nodded slowly. "If, and I say if, things were to progress, would you be willing to spend time in Nigeria, to learn our ways properly, to understand what it means to be part of a royal family?" "Yes," Christian said without hesitation, "I would. Even if it meant stepping back from your business, adapting to a different life." The question gave him pause. His company had been his entire focus for years, but as he looked at Adana across the garden, he realized the answer was simple. "Even then," he said quietly, "some things are more important than business." Queen Ifeoma studied him for a long moment. "Very well. You may continue to see my daughter with my provisional approval." Relief washed over Christian. "Thank you, Your Majesty." "Do not thank me yet," she warned. "You still have much to prove." Later, as the evening wound down, Adana walked Christian to the door. "You survived," she said, smiling. "Barely," he admitted. "Your mother is formidable." "But you impressed her. That's not easy to do." Christian took her hand gently. "The only person I truly want to impress is you." Adana's expression softened. "You're doing well so far." "May I see you tomorrow?" he asked. "There's somewhere I'd like to take you." "Where?" "It's a surprise, but dress casually." Curiosity lit up her eyes. "All right, tomorrow afternoon?" "Perfect." He hesitated, then leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished. When she didn't, he placed a soft kiss on her cheek. "Good night, Adana." "Good night, Christian," she replied, her voice a touch breathier than before. The next day, Christian picked Adana up in his car, not the usual chauffeur-driven luxury vehicle she might have expected. "Where are we going?" she asked as they drove through London. "You'll see." 20 minutes later, they pulled up in front of a modest building in a diverse neighborhood. A sign above the door read, "Diaspora Women's Business Center." "What is this?" Adana asked as they got out of the car. Christian looked suddenly nervous. "It's the first project funded by my foundation's new initiative. It officially opens next month, but I wanted you to see it first." Inside, the space was bright and modern, with private offices, meeting rooms, and a communal workspace. A few women were setting up computers and arranging furniture. Mr. Bellamy, a middle-aged black woman, approached them with a warm smile. "We weren't expecting you today." "Vanessa, this is Princess Adana Ekwueme," Christian introduced them. "Adana, this is Vanessa Jones, the center's director." Vanessa's eyes widened. "Princess, it's an honor. We've heard so much about your work with diaspora investments." "The honor is mine," Adana replied. "This is a wonderful facility." "Thanks to Mr. Bellamy," Vanessa said. "He's provided everything we need. Equipment, mentors, even childcare facilities for our members." Christian looked embarrassed at the praise. "The women who'll use this center are doing the real work. I'm just providing resources." Vanessa showed them around, explaining how the center would support black women entrepreneurs with training, networking, and access to capital. Throughout the tour, Adana watched Christian interact with the staff, respectful, engaged, and genuinely interested in their work. Later, as they walked back to his car, Adana was quiet. "Did I do something wrong?" Christian asked, concerned by her silence. She shook her head. "No, just the opposite." She stopped walking and turned to face him. "This isn't just for show, is it? You really care about this project?" "I do," he said simply. "Meeting you opened my eyes, but the more I learn, the more I understand how much needs to change. This center is just a start." Adana studied his face. "You know, when we first met, I thought you were just another entitled businessman with outdated views." "I was," Christian admitted. "But now—" She took his hand. "Now I'm seeing the man you can be, the man you're becoming." Christian felt his heart race at her touch, at the warmth in her eyes. "And what do you think of that man?" Instead of answering, Adana rose on her tiptoes and pressed her lips gently against his. The kiss was brief but perfect, leaving Christian momentarily speechless. "Does that answer your question?" she asked, a smile playing at her lips. He nodded, not trusting his voice. "Good." She started walking again, tugging him along. "Now, I believe you promised me lunch after our tour?" Christian laughed, feeling lighter than he had in years. "Your wish is my command, Princess." Over the next few weeks, Christian and Adana fell into a rhythm, seeing each other whenever her schedule allowed. He attended events at the Nigerian embassy with her, and she joined him for quiet dinners at his penthouse, where they talked for hours. With each meeting, Christian felt himself falling deeper. He had never known it could be like this, to care about someone else's thoughts, dreams, and feelings more than his own. Eleanor noticed the change in her brother immediately. "You're smiling all the time," she teased one evening when they met for drinks. "It's unsettling." Christian laughed. "Get used to it." "So it's serious with the princess?" "Yes," he said simply. Eleanor's expression softened. "I'm happy for you, Christian, really. She's brought out a side of you I wasn't sure existed." "She makes me want to be better," he admitted. "Not just for her, but for everyone around me." Just then, his phone rang. It was Martha, sounding worried. "Sir, there's a problem. The board is calling an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. Alexander Townsend has been talking to the other members, questioning your recent decisions." Alexander was Richard Townsend's son and the most conservative board member, always resistant to change. "What's his concern?" Christian asked, though he could guess. "The African investments, the foundation's new focus, all of it. He's suggesting that your personal relationship with Princess Adana is clouding your business judgment." Christian felt a flash of anger. "I see. Thank you for the warning, Martha." After hanging up, he explained the situation to Eleanor. "What will you do?" she asked. Christian squared his shoulders. "Defend my decisions. They're good business, personal feelings aside. And if they force the issue, if they make you choose between your company's traditional approach and the new direction you've taken," the question hung in the air between them. A month ago, there would have been no question. Business always came first for Christian Bellamy. But now, thinking of Adana, of the work they could do together, of the future they might build, the answer was clear. "Then I choose the future," he said firmly, "with or without them." Eleanor smiled proudly. "That's what I thought you'd say." Christian raised his glass. "To new beginnings." "To love," Eleanor countered, clinking her glass against his. "Because that's what this is, isn't it?" Christian didn't deny it. The realization had been growing in him for weeks. He was in love with Princess Adana Ekwueme. Now he just needed to find the courage to tell her. The Bellamy Investment Group's boardroom was tense the next morning. Christian sat at the head of the table, outwardly calm despite the hostile glances from several board members. Alexander Townsend stood, straightening his expensive tie. At 45, he represented the old guard of London finance, traditional, conservative, and resistant to change. "Gentlemen, ladies," Alexander began, "I've called this emergency meeting because I'm concerned about the direction our company is taking. In the past 3 months, Mr. Bellamy has diverted significant resources to untested markets based on what appears to be a personal infatuation." Christian's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. "The African investments, the new foundation initiatives, all of this began after Mr. Bellamy met Princess Adana Ekwueme. While I'm sure the princess is charming, we cannot allow romantic entanglements to dictate business strategy." Several board members nodded in agreement. Richard Townsend, Alexander's father, looked uncomfortable, but didn't contradict his son. "If I may respond," Christian said, his voice steady as he stood. "The princess did indeed inspire me to look more closely at African markets. What I found was opportunity, untapped potential that our competitors are overlooking. Our new investments are already showing promising returns." He distributed a folder to each board member. "These are the first quarter results for our African ventures. As you can see, we're outperforming projections by 17%. The board members flipped through the reports, some looking surprised. "Numbers don't lie," Christian continued. "This isn't about romance, it's about recognizing opportunity where others see only risk." Alexander scoffed. "Pretty words, but we all know you've been distracted. The Christian Bellamy who built this company would never have written that mea culpa in the Financial Times, practically begging forgiveness for speaking his mind." Christian's temper flared. "That speaking my mind was ignorant and offensive. I was wrong and I had the courage to admit it. Publicly. That's not weakness, Alexander, it's growth." "Growth?" Alexander laughed coldly. "Or simply the price of winning the princess's affection?" The room fell silent. Christian took a deep breath, controlling his anger. "My personal life is not the subject of this meeting," he said evenly. "The company's performance is, and by every metric, we are thriving under the new strategy." Richard Townsend cleared his throat. "The numbers are impressive, I'll grant you that. But Alexander raises a fair concern. How can we be sure these decisions are based on sound business judgment rather than personal considerations?" Christian looked around the table, seeing the doubt in their eyes. These were people who had known him for years, who had watched him build an empire through cold, calculated decisions. They didn't recognize the man standing before them now, a man changed by love. "Let me be clear," Christian said. "Yes, meeting Princess Adana opened my eyes to opportunities I had been blind to. But every investment, every initiative has been thoroughly researched and vetted. I believe in these projects not because of my feelings for her, but because they make good business sense." He paused, looking each board member in the eye. "That said, if the board has lost confidence in my leadership, I'm prepared to step down as CEO." Gasps filled the room. Alexander looked stunned. This was not the outcome he had anticipated. "You would resign?" Richard asked incredulously. "Over this?" Christian nodded. "If forced to choose between the company's traditional approach and the direction I believe is right, yes, I would step down." Martha, taking notes in the corner, looked up in shock. Eleanor, who had insisted on attending as a major shareholder, smiled proudly at her brother. Alexander, sensing his plan backfiring, quickly changed tactics. "No one is suggesting you resign, Christian. We're simply expressing concern." "Your concern is noted," Christian interrupted. "Now let's put it to a vote. Those who support continuing our current strategy, including the African investments and foundation initiatives, raise your hands." Slowly, hands began to rise. Eleanor's first, then Richard Townsend's, surprising his son, followed by most of the others. Only Alexander and two allies kept their hands down. "The majority supports the current direction," Christian stated. "Unless there's other business, this meeting is adjourned." As the board members filed out, Alexander approached Christian. "This isn't over," he muttered. "You're letting emotion cloud your judgment, and sooner or later, it will cost us." "No, Alexander," Christian replied calmly. "For the first time I'm seeing clearly, that's what scares you." After everyone left, Eleanor hugged her brother tightly. "You were amazing. I was so proud when you offered to resign." "I meant it," Christian said. "Some things are more important than business." "Like love?" Eleanor teased. Christian smiled. "Yes, like love." That evening, Christian was scheduled to attend a charity gala in Lagos with Adana. The event, supporting education for girls in Nigeria, was to be his first public appearance in her home country. As his private jet prepared for landing in Lagos, Christian felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He had been to Nigeria twice in the past month, but always for brief business meetings. Tonight would be different. He would be by Adana's side, in her world. The gala was held in a magnificent colonial-era building, now serving as a cultural center. When Christian arrived, the event was already underway, the grand hall filled with Nigeria's elite, international diplomats and celebrities. He hadn't told Adana he was coming early. His original plan had been to arrive tomorrow, but after the board meeting he felt an urgent need to see her. Christian spotted her immediately. She stood near the center of the room, resplendent in a gown that combined traditional Nigerian elements with modern design. Her hair was adorned with small gold ornaments that caught the light when she moved, and her smile as she greeted guests was warm but regal. He made his way through the crowd, stopping when he was close enough to hear her speaking with an elderly diplomat. "Princess Adana," the man was saying, "your foundation's work is transformative. You make Nigeria proud." "Thank you, Ambassador," she replied with gracious humility. "But the credit belongs to the communities embracing change." Her voice, that perfect blend of strength and gentleness, made Christian's heart race. As if sensing his presence, Adana turned and saw him. Surprise and pleasure lit up her face. "Christian, you're early." He approached, bowing slightly. "I couldn't wait another day." The ambassador excused himself, leaving them alone in the crowd. "Is everything all right?" Adana asked, concern in her eyes. "You look tired." "It's been an interesting day," Christian admitted. "I'll tell you everything later. Right now I just want to enjoy being here with you." Adana smiled, taking his arm. "Come, there are people I want you to meet." For the next hour, Christian was introduced to ministers, business leaders, and royal relatives, all watching him with curious eyes, assessing the white Englishman who had captured their princess's attention. During a moment alone, Adana squeezed his hand. "You're making a good impression. Everyone is surprised by how knowledgeable you are about Nigerian affairs." I've been studying, Christian said simply. So I see. She studied his face. Now tell me what happened today. I know something's on your mind. Christian sighed. There was an emergency board meeting. Some members questioned my new business direction, suggesting it was influenced by my feelings for you. Adana's expression fell. I never meant to cause problems for your company. You didn't, he assured her. You opened my eyes to opportunities I was too narrow-minded to see. The board voted to support my strategy, but I realized something important today. What's that? Christian looked into her eyes. That if forced to choose between my company and the future I hope to build with you, there's no contest. You win. Every time. Adana's breath caught. Christian. Before she could continue, the event host approached the microphone, announcing that dinner would be served shortly, followed by speeches from key supporters, including Princess Adana. As guests moved toward their tables, Christian made a decision. He approached the host and whispered something in the man's ear. The host looked surprised but nodded. What was that about? Adana asked when Christian returned to her side. You'll see, he replied mysteriously. During dinner, Christian was quieter than usual, gathering his thoughts. When the time came for speeches, he listened with pride as Adana addressed the crowd, her passion for education and opportunity evident in every word. After several more speakers, the host returned to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an unexpected addition to our program tonight. Mr. Christian Bellamy has asked for a moment to address you. Adana turned to Christian, eyes wide with surprise, as he rose and made his way to the podium. The crowd fell silent, curious about what this British businessman might say. Christian looked out at the sea of faces, then found Adana's eyes. Good evening, he began. Many of you don't know me. Some may wonder why I'm here. The answer is simple. Because Princess Adana Ekwemi changed my life. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Christian continued, his voice growing stronger. 3 months ago I was a different man. Arrogant, narrow-minded, and tragically mistaken about many things. I once made comments about black women that were ignorant and hurtful. I never apologized because I didn't think I had to. He paused, looking directly at Adana. Then I met a woman who showed me what true grace looks like. A woman who carries herself with such dignity and compassion that she transformed my understanding of strength. The room was completely silent now, all eyes on Christian as he spoke from the heart. You redefined royalty for me, he said, speaking to Adana, though the entire room could hear. Not with bloodline, but with grace. You are not masculine, you are magnificent. I once thought power meant never bending. Then I met a woman who made me proud to bow. Tears glistened in Adana's eyes as Christian continued. I came to Nigeria not just for this event, but to tell Princess Adana and all of you that I am committed to supporting her vision. My company has established a $100 million fund for educational initiatives across Nigeria to be directed by the Princess's Foundation. Gasps and applause filled the room. Christian held up his hand. This isn't about recognition or publicity. It's about doing what's right, and about honoring a woman who showed me that true strength lies in grace, not arrogance. Thank you. As Christian returned to his seat, the crowd rose in a standing ovation. Adana took his hand under the table, squeezing it tightly. You didn't have to do that, she whispered. Yes, I did, he replied. For too long, I've been hiding behind cold logic and business talk. It was time to speak from the heart. After the gala, as they rode back to Adana's family compound, she was unusually quiet. Have I overstepped? Christian asked, worried by her silence. Adana shook her head. No, I'm just processing. What you said tonight was beautiful, but it was also very public. Everyone will be talking about us now. Does that bother you? She turned to face him. Christian, do you understand what you've done? In our culture, such a public declaration is tantamount to announcing serious intentions. Good, he said firmly, because my intentions are serious. Adana's eyes widened. Christian! I love you, Adana, he said simply. I think I've loved you since the moment you walked away from me at the forum, too dignified to show how my past words had hurt you. I love your grace, your strength, your compassion. I love the way you've changed me, made me better. Tears filled her eyes. Christian, there's so much to consider. My duties, my family, our different worlds. I know, he acknowledged, and I'm ready to face all of it. Together. Adana looked out the window at the Lagos night. My mother will expect you to follow our traditions. I've been learning them, Christian said, all of them. She turned back to him, a small smile forming. You've been busy. For you? Always. The next morning, Christian was summoned to meet with Queen Ifeoma, who had been in the audience for his speech. He arrived at her private quarters in the family compound, feeling both nervous and determined. The Queen received him in a sunlit sitting room, her regal bearing as intimidating as ever. Mr. Bellamy, she greeted him, your speech last night was unexpected, but sincere, Your Majesty, Christian assured her. Queen Ifeoma studied him. My daughter tells me you have declared your love for her. Yes, I have. And you believe 3 months is sufficient time to make such a determination. Christian met her gaze steadily. Sometimes, Your Majesty, the heart knows quickly what the mind takes time to accept. I love Adana. That won't change whether it's been 3 months or 3 years. The Queen's expression remained unreadable. Love is not simply an emotion, Mr. Bellamy. In our culture, it is a commitment, to family, to tradition, to duty. I understand that, Christian said, and I'm prepared to honor all of those aspects of Adana's life. Are you? Queen Ifeoma raised an eyebrow. Would you be willing to spend significant time in Nigeria, to learn our language, to raise children who understand their heritage and responsibilities as members of a royal family? Yes, Christian answered without hesitation. All of that and more. The Queen stood and walked to a cabinet, removing a small wooden box. Adana's father gave me this when he asked for my hand, she said, opening the box to reveal a simple band woven from colorful threads. In our tradition, the materials represent the joining of families, the weaving of lives together. She closed the box and handed it to Christian. If your intentions are as serious as you claim, you should know our ways. Christian accepted the box, understanding its significance. Thank you, Your Majesty. This means more than I can express. Do not thank me yet, she warned. I have not given my blessing. What would it take to earn that blessing? Christian asked. Queen Ifeoma's expression softened slightly. Continue as you have begun. Learn our ways. Respect our traditions. And most importantly, love my daughter for who she is, not who you wish her to be. I already do, Christian promised. Then perhaps there is hope for you yet, Mr. Bellamy. The Queen's lips curved in a small smile. Now go. Adana is waiting in the garden. Christian found Adana sitting beside a small fountain, the morning sun highlighting the golden accents in her hair. She wore a simple dress in vibrant blue, looking more relaxed than he had ever seen her. How was your meeting with my mother? She asked as he sat beside her. Educational, Christian replied with a smile. She's teaching me about your traditions. Adana looked surprised. She is? That's unexpected. She gave me this, Christian said, showing her the wooden box but not opening it. To help me understand your customs. Adana's eyes widened as she recognized the box. Christian, do you know what that is? I believe so, he said softly. It's about commitment, about weaving lives together. She nodded slowly. It's very significant that she showed you this. Christian took her hand. Adana, I meant everything I said last night. I love you. These past months have changed me in ways I never imagined possible. You've shown me a better way to be, not just as a man who loves you, but as a human being in the world. I love you too, she whispered, but I worry. Our worlds are so different. Then we'll create a new world, Christian suggested, one that honors both our backgrounds, both our responsibilities. He hesitated, then continued. I have something to show you. I've been working on it for weeks. From his pocket, he removed a small velvet pouch and emptied its contents into his palm, a ring unlike any Adana had seen before. It was woven from threads of Ankara cloth and English silk, intertwined to create a band of remarkable beauty and meaning. A union of everything we were told should not mix, Christian said softly, echoing the words from his heart. Adana touched it gently, her fingers trembling. You made this? With help from a Nigerian artisan and an English jewelry designer. It's not gold or diamonds. Those seem too cold, too conventional for what we share. Tears filled Adana's eyes as she looked from the ring to Christian's face. It's perfect. Christian took a deep breath. I'm not asking for an answer today. I know there's still much for us to navigate. Your responsibilities, my business, our different cultures. But I want you to know that whenever you're ready, this belongs to you. As does my heart. Adana touched the woven ring, then placed her hand against Christian's cheek. You were wrong about us, she said softly, but now you're right here. And she kissed him, delicately, intentionally, not because she forgave the past, but because he had earned a place in her future. 6 months later, the grounds of the Ekweme family's ancestral home in Nigeria were transformed for a celebration unlike any the region had seen before. Hundreds of guests from around the world gathered to witness the union of Princess Adana Ekweme and Christian Bellamy. The ceremony blended Nigerian traditions with English customs, creating something new and beautiful. Much like the relationship it celebrated, Christian stood tall in traditional Nigerian attire, the vibrant colors a stark contrast to the conservative suits he once favored. Beside him, Eleanor wiped away tears as she watched her brother's face light up when Adana appeared. The princess was radiant in a gown that combined elements of a Western wedding dress with traditional Nigerian bridal attire. As she walked toward Christian, escorted by her regal mother, the assembled guests fell silent in appreciation of her beauty. When they exchanged vows, Christian spoke in both English and Igbo, his careful pronunciation of the traditional words earning approving nods from Adana's family. On their fingers they placed matching woven rings, symbols of their unique bond. Later at the reception, Queen Ifeoma approached the couple. My daughter, she said, embracing Adana before turning to Christian. And my son. Christian bowed respectfully. Mother, he said in the traditional form of address. The Queen smiled, a genuine warm smile that transformed her usually stern face. You have learned well. I had excellent teachers, Christian replied, glancing at Adana. Queen Ifeoma nodded approvingly. Remember what I told you when you first spoke of courting my daughter. Do not fall for the white man who kneels without understanding the crown you wear, Christian recalled. Yes. The Queen looked at him thoughtfully. But you have come to understand, haven't you? I'm learning more every day, Christian said honestly. And I will spend my life continuing to learn, to honor, and to support the crown Adana wears, both her royal heritage and the dignity that is uniquely hers. Satisfied, the Queen moved on to greet other guests, leaving Christian and Adana alone for a moment. Happy? He asked, taking his wife's hand. Adana nodded, her eyes shining. More than I ever thought possible. Christian looked around at the celebration, Nigerian dignitaries mingling with British aristocrats, his business associates chatting with Adana's royal relatives, two worlds coming together in harmony. It won't always be easy, he acknowledged. We have 2 lives, 2 homes, 2 sets of responsibilities. And 1 love, Adana added, squeezing his hand. Strong enough to bridge any distance. Christian raised her hand to his lips. I still can't believe how wrong I was about everything. Adana smiled. Not everything. You were right about one thing. What's that? That people can change. That grace can transform even the hardest heart. Christian pulled her close, overwhelmed by gratitude for the woman who had shown him a better way to be. Your grace undid me, Princess, and remade me into someone worthy of standing beside you. Not my grace, Adana corrected gently. Love. It was love that transformed us both. As they moved to the dance floor for their first dance as husband and wife, Christian held Adana with reverent tenderness. Looking into her eyes, he saw not just his wife but his future, a future brighter and more meaningful than he had ever dared to imagine. He had once thought power meant never bending. Now he understood that true strength lay in the courage to change, to grow, to love. And in Adana's eyes, he found the grace that had undone him, and the love that had made him whole. The end.